day 6 of programming every day until I get a full-time job. And this camera angle might look different. It's because I'm looking at my monitor right now. That's why. And I'm gonna keep working on that text editor. Okay. And let me bring this to there. No, I won't do it. Okay, so yesterday I looked did like jack shit, but that's why I'm gonna try to record for like 2.5 hours today. Somewhere around there. And there. Okay, so I want to keep there's a couple things we could do. Where is it? Holding multiple lines. JK. Oops. Okay, so how does it look on here? No, no. It doesn't look like that. Why is it way? It's so much smoother on here. I feel like it's so choppy on mine. Just here, no? Yeah, it's so much choppy there. Why is that? What the fuck? Well, that's what I have so far. And okay. So why is that not showing? It's weird. Whatever. Figure out multiple lines, and then I want to include J and K. So right now I can only do horizontal movements, right, in terms of single characters. But I want to start to add vertical movement as well. So I think I don't know what I want to do. I'm kind of like avoiding both, to be honest. So hold it. Multiple lines. Okay, multiple lines. Why isn't this? Okay, that's multiple lines. Okay, so how do I render one line? Just repeat the code. So I make a constant here, make a text string to start it off there, start end, cur, title, blah blah blah. I make a font object, make a screen, which is a surface, which is the size of the window we want to make, and then we fill it with white. Character setup, edit character, plugin, surface font under A. Okay, so we make a surface that is rendered text, and then we get a rectangle of that text, which is just the size of it, I think. Hold on, just it's kind of interesting. Wait, I'm so curious now. I always get sidetracked like this. Oh no, it's the same. It's the same. So what I was looking at is like if you look at the editor here, right? You see like after the character on the top and the bottom, there is like space, right? And it's like that for every character, but that's I was trying to see if there's extra space in between the characters themselves, or if it's like all like, does this square cover more than the size of the character? But it doesn't. It's just how it is. Yeah. Okay. So where was I? I think I brought this. And I was just checking here, right? And the reason I care about that is like, do we need extra offset like in between each line of text, right? And that tells me no, we don't. Like the font already takes care of that for us. So that's kind of awesome. Okay. So we make a surface of the text, and then we get the rectangle of that text, and then we draw the background, we draw the cursor, and we draw the text on top of that cursor. That makes sense. Okay, so how would I make another line of text? I would just need another rectangle or text. So let's text to jumping and dunking. Screen dot blit render text rectangle. Render text is a surface dot get rect piping surface get rect. Get the rectangular area of a surface. Returns a new rectangle covering the entire surface. The rectangle will always start at 0, 0 in a width and height. Okay. Sorry, 0, 0 with the width and height the same size as the image. You can pass keyword argument values to this function. These name values will be applied to the attributes of the rect before it is returned. An example would be mysurf.getRectCenter is equal to 100, 100 to create a rectangle for the surface centered at a given position. Okay. So width, height. Okay. Print text rect. String text rect. And I'm hoping this tells me size, right? So if it's width, height, it would be 27. Okay. So this is 504 by 27. So this last pixel right here is 27. So what is 27 divided by 2? That's 13.5. So it's 27 plus 13.5. That is 30, 40.5. Okay. So 40. Chord flow is equal to 10.5. Okay, and then render text 2 is font.render text 2 1 0 0 0. I think this is like what the text anti-aliasing, which I read about it and I forgot what it was, and then the color. Make sure this is uniform. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So now that we have that, text 2, probably not. Text render text 2, text, yeah, render text 2 dot get rect chord 0. And maybe this is wrong, but honestly, I think it's center is equal to 100. I don't understand the parameterization of this right now. Okay, so in that case, chat. This is from Pygame docs. I do not understand the parameterization of the center. Does it start at the top? I think it starts at the top left. Starts at the top left means 0, 0 is top left. Is the first 100 going down or to the right? It means the center is return, rect 100 right and 100 down. Okay, so it would be 0 chord. 0 chord. Screen backlit and then text 2 right. And there's an error somewhere. 0 expected 0 classy center 2. There. Oh, because the center. Okay. So chord. Did it print? No, it did not print. So it's kind of annoying. Not really. It's not that annoying actually. It's just math. What do I calculate? Okay, so it would be the length of this times 12. Chord y chord x flow is equal to ln text 2 times 12 divided by 2. 13j x. Oh, this should. Nice. I feel like there's like extra space there. Did I do the math wrong? Chord y is equal to 40.5. It's probably not good to hard code that. So what would it would be, okay, we would shift down the entire height of the first line plus half of that height, right? So it would be y is 0.0 chord y is equal to text dot height text rect dot height, so it'll be height plus text rect dot height divided by 2. Still feels like there's a lot, but honestly, no, it's probably just like how the characters are. I think that's probably fine. Okay. Figure out multiple lines. So I did that sort of. Right? I'm like hard coding everything, but so I gotta plan stuff, right? Like these proof of concepts are like, okay, cool to see, like, okay, it works on the screen, right? But will it actually work for like, all of the fucking Vim features I need to include? So figure out holding J and K. He will do holding last. Lines. Let's see there. Destination. Okay. I know how to hard code multiple lines now, but how do I get them? I think that will be more like, once we work on like switching modes. We'll have to think about how to switch things, right? But I'm trying to figure out. What am I even trying to figure out here? I'm trying to write down my thoughts to think through this better. And what I'm really trying to figure out right now. How to get multiple. I'm not trying to figure out how to get. What does how to get multiple lines mean? That doesn't really mean anything, right? It's not a specific question that I'm trying to answer. I don't even know what question I'm trying to answer, but I feel like there is a question about the scalability of the solution I'm like making, right? Because this, where is it? Like calculating coordinates every single time and then making rectangles every single time doesn't feel scalable, right? I don't know. It doesn't feel scalable to me. So how would, if we create a new file, let's think about opening a file for now, because that's kind of what we're emulating with the multiple text strings, right? We are emulating the fact that we're opening a file that has multiple lines, right? So how, like once we open the file, right, how would we know where a line is and when to make new lines, right? Because like, there's two reasons. There are two reasons a new line could be made. Thinking under the assumption that we are opening a file with text. There are two reasons a new line could be made. User presses enter. User runs out of space on the line above. Right. So that would mean we would need to calculate the max. We would need to count the max number of characters on any line, and this would be just one number, right? And you would also need to like read the text, or like before visualizing all the text, we would need to parse through the text and determine where to create new lines, right? We need to parse through the text to see where to create new lines, right? So it would like read through every character or something, right? Or it would need to be every character, because we'd have to look for like new line characters. New line character. A new line. Frequent call line, encoding end of line, next line, or line break is a control character or sequence of control characters and character encoding specifications such as ASCII, EBGDIC, and Unicode. This character or sequence of characters is used to signify the end of a line of text and start a new one. In a text editor, what happens when you press enter? What actually gets added to the file? I'm assuming this is the new line character, right? Why does the file created using a text editor contain 1 byte more than expected? I created a file like this. There are 4 characters in the first line, 3 characters in the second line, there's only 1 character. There are totally 8 characters inside. When I count the characters using the following C program, it gives me 9. You don't use the WC command to count, so 9. Why? There's reasoning in favor of having all the lines terminated with a new line character. And there are text editors that are set up to add a trailing new line character automatically if not already there. Probably this is why. Content, text, crazy shit. What is this article? Why should text files end with a new line? I assume everyone here is familiar with the adage that all text files should end with a new line. I've known about this rule for years, but I've always wondered why. It's the first time I'm hearing about this. Well, because that's how the POSIX standard defines a line. A sequence of 0 or more non-new line characters plus a terminating new line character. Therefore, lines not ending in a new line character aren't considered actual lines. That's why some programs process the last line of the file differently. It is a new line terminated. The advantage of following this convention is that it is internally consistent in all POSIX tools expected to use it. For instance, when concatenating files with cat, a file terminated by the new line a.text, c.text will have a different effect. What about me? Follow this rule for consistency. Otherwise, would incur extra work when dealing with default POSIX tools. Okay. So. not. Oh, okay. First, let's see where to create new lines. Have a new line at the end of each line, even last one. So that makes things a little bit easier because, say, like however long I want to make, it would be dependent on. It would be dependent on the size of the text editor, right? Whatever. So we would need to know how long each line would be, and once we approach that last character, we would put a new line, and then it would jump to the next line, right? If the user hit the max amount of characters per line, or if they just press enter, and it would just make a new line, right? And so the text editor, when opening a file, it would parse through the whole text and dynamically make lines for however much we need, right? So I wonder how like the control D, control U, control E, control Y stuff's gonna work. Right, because there could be lines up above and there could be lines below, and we're just shifting the view of the file, right? Because Vim is just like a small little view into the contents of a file. That's interesting. It would probably have like some index of like, I'll say each line is in an array, right? And then there would be an index, like a start and an end index to the lines that are shown, right? So if you keep typing and you keep going down, right, the top index would increase because we're shifting down. But if we were scrolling up, say with Control U, the end index would decrease, and so would the up index. So we would need a way to maintain like the current view of the whatchamacallit, the text, the file. Is 12 hard coded? I think it is. Yeah, it is hard coded. Cursor width is equal to what is it? Character rect dot width 17 cursor width. No, not 17. Oh, what was 17? With 22J cursor width. Nice. I should avoid hard coding those things because it'll get annoying in the future. So I still feel stuck on what to actually do next, because figuring out multiple lines means two things, right? Doing it for, that's the same thing, but we would need to account for new files where it's initially empty, right? And then we would type until we hit the end of line character, or the last character possible, add a new line, and then make another. What do we even do? We made another rectangle, right? And we made another rectangle and we rendered more text, right? So we would probably need some sort of loop here where we render text on a rectangle onto the screen on top of the background. But that feels kind of dumb, right? Because we're trying to avoid bleeding as much as possible. How does bleeding actually work? Draw one image onto another. Draw many images onto another. Surf array. What is this? It's Python module for accessing surface pixel data using array interfaces. So take a copy. Okay. Draw a source surface onto this surface. Source destination. Source destination. But when, like, okay, we draw the background, we draw the cursor, we draw the text on. Oh, because this has coordinates too, right? Like this would be like 0, 0, and then like the width of the the dimensions of the rendered text, surface or rectangle, right? This would be the same thing as we saw here, right? Get rect center. Like, would we really? I feel like that's like such a inelegant solution of just making new things every single time. Like, why couldn't we just have one big rectangle and then just append it to the bottom or delete it or whatever? How would we do that? Okay, so what should the goal be? right? Like right now, I'm still figuring out normal mode, but we want our whatever system we have of making lines and stuff for normal mode work for feel so stuck right now, but there's nothing to be stuck on. Is how to avoid bleeding too many things. Strategies to optimize bleeding in Pygame. Bleeding too many objects on screen in Pygame can lead to performance issues and low frame rates. Here are several strategies to avoid bleeding too many things and keep your game running smoothly. Convert surfaces. Converting surface to match display format or screen considerably improves bleeding performance. Always use convert or convert alpha for loading images. Utilize dirty recs for partial updates. Instead of redrawing the entire screen with every update, use dirty rectangles to only update the areas that have changed. Pygame's display update function, when past a list of dirty recs, only redraws those specific areas. This can significantly improve performance, especially in games where only a few objects are moving at a time. Leverage Pygame.sprite.render updates. This specialized sprite group automatically tracks and manages dirty rectangles, simplifying the implementation of partial updates. You can draw the group and update only the necessary areas using draw static objects once. Surface consume more memory processing power. So that's how much easier to process if the game did not complete that every frame. Assuming this grass tile is the floor or background, since all the grass can be pre-blidded to a surface and only the surface needs to be blidded every frame. So that isn't like an important idea is that we only want split changes, right? Multiple lines, JK, figure out holding. Have I figured out multiple lines? I figured out one way to blit like 2 lines onto the screen. Let me think for a little bit. So what? What's the size of the font? 20? I know if I change it to like 16. Yeah, nice. We would need like two sources of information, right? And let me interesting. Is that just like a new line character? I guess it is. main character. So this would just be. What's this do? It's also just this guy. Okay. We list out all the problems so far. How to create new lines in the user says add a new line checker. Create a new. Could you grow erect? Tagging erect row. You can't inflate it. So what if we just had a dynamic rectangle array? Is it more efficient to grow rectangles? Is it more efficient to grow shrink x with move versus move IP, inflate versus inflate IP. Okay. We want to use IP if we go with the inflate route. Is it more efficient to grow shrink recs with inflate IP versus creating new ones and deleting? Feels like running shrinking the same one is best. Okay. So spend it's like kind of frustrating right now because I know if I just like ChatGPT Goo into shit, like it'll probably do it, but like that's just gonna like make me stupider. So why do that? But at the same time, we're feeling so stupid right now just because I'm just like stuck. Fucking hell. What else is another problem? What if? Okay. Actually, something pissing me off. Hold on. There's spaces. Why isn't it working? Collapse. Spaces. Screens. Show. Google. Google. Load in a file. Display text. Be able to HJKL. Remove that text. Right. So if I don't have a goal, I'm just gonna sit here and just keep thinking and keep spacing out. So load in a file, display text. Be able to HJKL through the text. So okay, loading a file, like that's easy enough, right? Displaying the text. I already know how to display text with Pygame. How do we display it properly? Right, and what are like the edge cases that we have to look out for here? So there are two things that we need to kind of account for, right? And that is how to load in the text and how to, what do you call it? How to load in the cursor, right? Right now, loading in the text just seems like just create or use the same rectangle and just add text. So first, let me try to. So we would need, okay, the screen. We would need the screen and the background, right? We would need screen, background, and we would need, like, do we want to dynamically, no, let's just like keep it simple. So we would render, we would have like the full length of a possible row of text. Possible text. as a rect. And then we would, well, that muing should actually work, bro. Fuck. Why does obsidian always go to the end? Alt. Alright, I'm getting distracted. We need the screen background, we need a full row of possible text as a rect, and we would need every possible cursor location. Okay, so honestly, let me figure out. Oh, fuck, bro, why do I feel so stuck? Let me just read through my notes real quick. Figure out multiple lines, JK, figure out holding. Multiple lines. What are you trying to figure out right now? Thinking under the assumption that we are opening a file with text, there are two reasons a new line can be made. The user presses enter, the user runs out of space on the line above. We would need to calculate the maximum number of characters on any line, which is a constant that would, yeah, this would never change. We would need to parse through the text to see where to create new lines. Yeah, because we'd be looking for the new line character or like we hit the max number of lines, right? We would need to parse through the text to see where to create new lines. Having new line at the end of each line, even the last one. We only want to blit changes. How to create new lines when the user presses enter? Add a new line character, expand the current rect. And problem, new lines look weird. And that I tried to new lines weird. New lines can be weird or not rendered screen primarily because Python the font render traditionally does not support multi-line text directly. This means that new line characters and within split text into individual line. Define your multi-line string to list a single line strings based on new line characters, render each line separately. Font, but each line at a calculated position. Yeah, I can figure that out. Okay. Let me try to figure out how to JK through this. Right. And then once we do that, then I'll try to figure out how we would like, pull from a file and then render each line, right? Okay, so how do we do J and K? Is cur is greater than start cur, string dot the cur 0. Okay, so can we mute these lines? I'm tripping. We don't because it's just start x and x start end. Right. Lines to start y 0 and y is equal to length lines. Oh, what the fuck? Lines. And lines would be equal to length of whatever that is. Right? So if event dot key game dot k j if this is where things get weird. What would be so if the we're checking can we go to the next line if cur y is greater than us and then n y cur y plus equals cursor height string dot width cursor cur y curry. Okay, so start y cur okay, cur y is equal to 0. cursor height. Cursor width. Cursor character dot height. Cur x, cur y is less than and y. Okay. If event dot key is equal to I game dot k, jk, if cur y is greater than start y, cur y is equals to cur height, screen dot width. I don't even need to do that, right? Because it does it. Yeah, it does it there. Okay. Bicycles. Right, like this is just like modifying the values. What? And this is like actually, what is it called? Drawing on screen. And this should go all the way to the end, right? Because it's not like we're just getting the total length, right? But that's not what we want. We want it to be per line how far we can go, like down or up, right? So if I was here, right, if I pressed J, it wouldn't go there. It would go here, right? So we gotta figure that out now. And once we have that, I think we can work on whatever. Fuck whatever's next. Let's just like do this first, right? So once we're here, we don't want to go here. So we need to track what line we are on because each line has its length, right? And since if we know the length of the line, we know how far we could go left or right, right? And if we know how many lines there are, we could go however much down, right? So this is interesting. I'm gonna go get a snack because I'm hungry. It's 3:50. So I'm gonna make a snack and then I'm gonna come back and then I'm gonna figure this out. I'll be back. Hey, I'm back. So what was I need to figure out this shit. Right. Okay. So proper H J K L. Let me just organize this real quick. Proper HJKL. So what is happening is we are our cursor is going places it shouldn't. Right? It shouldn't go here. It shouldn't go anywhere here, right? Can you do that? Not right. So if you had this, right, if you go down, that's kind of weird. So if I were 3J, okay, so say, wait, hold up, my mom's calling me. Ah! So, okay, so say we're here, right? We're on line 70, and we're on the underscore now. Right, if I go here, I go to J, it goes up exactly where it was before. Huh. And the reason I'm kind of confused there, right, is because if I'm here, right, if I'm on the end of line 73 and I go up, I go to the end of the line, right? But if I'm here, right, I go here. So what's actually happening? Is it remember the last place I was? Because what I would assume to happen here, right, or if I go here, yeah, if I go here, if I'm not at the end of the line, it just goes up, right? But if I'm at the end of the line, it could go up. It's interesting how that behavior changes. Is it the same at the start? Within end of line. Within end of line behave. So, okay. Well, what do I want it to do? I want it to. If I'm at the end, if I press J, I would want it to go here. So what would happen if? That's not working out, see. So it remembers. Dude, what? How does that work? What would I want in my text editor? What would I need? What would I want, right? Because that's what really matters here. So say I'm writing notes, right? And I think I would just go down now. I would just go down to the end. Do I want that? I don't think I even want that. Or I don't know if I want that because I don't consciously use that feature. So I don't know. But that seems way more complicated. So okay, if I'm at the last line of the character, before moving on to the next line, right, I would need to know, like, could I move here? Is this move valid, right? If it's valid, just move here. But if it's not valid, what is the rightmost location on the next line, or whatever line I'm moving to, right, that is valid? Because eventually we want to have what we call it, like, line numbers on the left, and I can do like bigger jumps throughout the file, right, with J and K, and that would need, like, okay, so here, go 5K, since that one is valid, that would work, right? So if I go to the end of line 58 and I want to jump to this line right here, right, line 61, let's do this one. So I do 4J, it would go to the end of the line. So before any jump or move actually happens, we'd want to see first, can we move there? Like, is there even a line there? Because if we go here, right, and do 1000J, we just end up going to the last line, right? Okay, so we need to check for that next line, is it valid or not, right? So what would be what would we do then? Or how could we organize the data anyway? Okay, so what information would we actually need? Cursor is going places it shouldn't. We need to store how the length of each line, right? Because like we need that information to know how far we can go to the right or not. And do we even? I think I got something. Current y. This then. Okay, so this is j, right? This is going down. So if we are able to go down, if so this check, this if statement is checking, can we move to the place we are attempting to move to? Can we move to the place? If not, and if so, move to the place. If not, move to the last place in that line. Okay. Can we move to the place we're attempting to move to? So what would this be if current x is less than or equal to next x, right? And what is next x? Next x would be the line we are attempting to move to. So this is where like having a what would an appropriate, we would need a data structure. Just keep this for now, right? We would need a data structure to store every line of text, right? So when this data structure would be created when we open a file, we would parse this file and create lines in the data structure. So at first thought would be to use a hash map, but I don't think we even need that yet. I think we honestly just use an array. Right? And we the cur, this cur y, right? This cur y would be that index in the array, right? And since the array has, each value is a string, right? Where each string gets blitted under each other, we also have an implicit marker of where the end of that line would be, right? Because we would know how long each string is. We can calculate that like super easily, right? So we would have a list of strings. Data structure would be a list of strings. Each string would be a line of text. And oh, that solves the problem with new lines, because this solves the problem with new lines. Because we're just, when we parse the file, we would be reading it until we hit a new line, right? And once we hit that new line, we would be, oh, append that blank string, start adding characters to that new string, right? And then with that list of strings, like we would just render the list of strings, and we wouldn't ever have to worry about, what the fuck do you call it? Like new lines, right? Like we just wouldn't have to worry about that at all. In terms of reading, like, okay, like I'm building this like kind of this model of what to do, but this might all break once I start inserting in, right? But what should I do? Should I think through this entire approach with taking into account inserting and visualizing too, huh? I think I should, because why delay that, right? I would need that anyways. So, and I need to, my mom asked me to make guacamole, so I'm going to do that at 5. I'm going to go at 5. It's 4:52 right now. So 8 minutes of thinking and pondering. So what am I thinking about? So okay, what is my model of stuff? When approach on file selection, read a file and create a list of strings, where each string in the list is a line, is a bunch of characters from the file that get so a bunch of characters from the file until a new line. If I get a list of strings for each string, and the list is a bunch of characters from the file until a new line. On new line, create a new string and read into it until next new line. Okay, and with that, right, we have a we kind of have the document, the file laid out in a way that we can freaking display it in Pygame, right? And what that also gives us is this also gives us bounds for each line for the cursor so that it never renders in an invalid location. Okay, so for normal mode, this makes sense, and this should work, right? For insert mode, so if I, where's it here? Hello, my name is Avash. Okay, Peter, how are you doing? Okay, so we go until here, and then once we're done escaping, the cursor goes on top of the last character created. After inserting, and goes back to normal mode. Cursor goes on to the last character, right, in normal mode, and then we can do whatever we want in normal mode again, right? So we would still need that. Like we would need a cursor, either one cursor position variable, or two like cursor x, cursor y variables that we would need to maintain and increment, decrement as we move around our file, right? Dude, like W is going to be W, B, E. I'll worry about that later. Dude, U is going to be weird too. How the fuck would you even do an undo? That's going to be crazy. Well, that's why I do this, right, to figure shit out. But right now, I'll just worry about normal mode getting just H, J, K, L to work. Right. Hello, my name is Avash. Okay. So inserting the cursor goes on to the last character written. So how would this work with our thing? So we would, so this list of strings, right? It would also function as where we store new changes to the file that we were writing to. So as someone presses, as someone types in insert mode into the file, right? It would just append text to that, that, what do you call it? That string in the list of strings. It would append to the specific one that we want, or it might not append, it might go in the middle, it might go somewhere, right? Because we would know exactly where to add the text because we have the cursor, and the cursor is where we're going to add stuff, right? So, and that would be like A would go after, I would go before, right? Stuff like that. Okay. So would this work with inserting? It would work. One thing that worries me is whether it were like, okay, when we read a file into the data structure, right? There is we know the new lines, so the file is already in the kind of the length restrictions of the application, right? Because there is a length restriction for each line, right? Because that's how I want it. I don't, like once someone gets to like here in terms of text, it should automatically create a new line and go under, right? So would that be, like that's where things get kind of interesting, right? So if I were to do it in, does this even have like a, okay, no, okay. Like what is the, does it show here the column? No, it doesn't. So here, right, and okay, so it starts wrapping at a certain point because there is a kind of like a max, right? So if I go to the end of the line, would it make a new line here in the middle of these two lines and start typing, or would it create a new line in between these and start typing it? And how would it work for, if I'm, okay, like this line is empty, right? Not, it's not empty, but there's still free space available at the end of it. How would I, if I was at the I, and I pressed I and I went backspace, right? What it should do is it should fill up this line as much as it can, and this would move back, like that, right? But so many things to think about. Okay, I gotta make a whole, but let me just write down what I gotta think about, right? Cursor, okay, if we are writing, there's just two lines. So this is two lines. I am writing in the other line, and that line runs out of space. Would I start writing into the next line, or create a new line that is between the original upper and original lower, and write into that? What else do I have to think about? Okay, and the backspacing. I actually don't know why it's doing here now. If there are two lines and the upper line has space at the end, and we edit the lower line and we backspace at the beginning of the lower line, the upper line should fill as much as possible, and the lower line should delete however much text was moved up, and delete however much text was moved up. I think this one's pretty easy because we know the length of each string in each line, right? So and we also know however much what the max length of a string could be. So we can just take we know the difference of that, and then we can just move the difference into the line above and subtract the difference in the lower line, right? Since we know the lengths of each line and the max length of any line, we can just subtract the difference and do string indexing to move stuff in the upper and lower lines. Okay, and then this one's like a feature, right? Feature meaning that I would program the behavior into it. Like there's like a right answer for this one, right? There's like a easy, okay, this is how you would solve this. But for this, it would be what I want, but I don't even know what I want yet. So what do I think I would want? I think I would want, how does it work in this thing? Let's do that. So, hi, my name is Bud. Raj, I play soccer, and I like to shoot the ball. My groin has been sore from shooting too much. Right? And what? I think. Fuck, it's actually like so, because I'm viewing it. I have a biased view right now, right? Biased meaning I'm viewing it from a user perspective, which is me, but also a developer perspective, which is also me. So I'm thinking like, okay, I might want this, but that would be like really fucking annoying, or I might want that, but it's way less annoying. So it's hard. I gotta think about it more carefully, because I don't want the laziness of a developer to hinder my desire as a user, right? Like that's bad. It's by the way, I'm gonna go make guac. Fuck, I'm actually have to edit this stupid video. Whatever. I'll be back. It's been a couple hours, but I'm back. I'm not done. And while I was gone, I went hiking with my parents, and on the hike I was thinking of. Oh fuck, so good. Okay, good night. I was thinking of this project, and I think I got insert mode figured out. I think I got normal mode figured out. We're just thinking, like, okay, will my thoughts work? Probably. Maybe they won't, but if they don't, we'll figure out a different method. The thing I couldn't figure out, though, was, like, how... Okay, so in Obsidian, right? If I have, like this, right? This makes a note, and then that kind of highlights a different color, right? Like, how would I be able to do that in, whatchamacallit, in Peter Goon text, right? I think one thing I thought of potentially is that as okay, so there's a everything is stored in a file, right? And when we load, why is it showing that? Oh, it's because I'm there, right? Like this text eventually comes from a file, right? And in the file there would be what do you call it? Not shit. There would be like markers, whatever I choose the markers to be, like Obsidian. And Obsidian is double bracket, right? So in the file there could be those markers, and those markers correspond to, oh, okay, like this is a note. This is a subnote within the note we're currently reading. And like already before, like it's not, we don't go straight from the file read to displaying the contents of the file. There's like, we still have to build a list or an array of strings, right? Because that's like the method I'm going with to kind of display a bunch of strings, right? Oh fuck. There. My camera went away. I was doing like something so stupid. So I just got so lucky right there. Is my camera good now? Yeah, okay. But so like read from file, make one super long string, and then we'd do like an additional check. No, not even. We would build the list of strings, right? Like we would go through each character in the long file read string. Should write this shit down, huh? Okay. We read file and build one long string, right? And from that long string, we construct a list of strings where each string is one line to be displayed on GUI, right? And oh, that's something I still need to figure out is control E, control Y, control U, control D, right? I don't have those figured out yet. I'll work on it. Construct a list of strings where each string is one line to be displayed on GUI, and as we construct this list, we keep count of how many characters are on one string if greater than max number characters, which is the maximum amount of characters possible for one line, because we would have that value already figured out, right? If it's greater than that, then what would we do? If it's greater than that, we would make a new string in the list, right? And then like there would be some function that excuse me converts it from file. Okay, it would read it, right? It would read it to build a string, and with that string, it would build the list of strings. There'd be a function to go from string to list of strings to display in our editor, right? And there would also be a function in reverse going from list of strings to single string to write to our file, right? Since we have a list of strings, and we would have a variable for the x and the y position of our cursor, right? The x would be the place in the current line, which is one string. You can think of each line as a string. The place in that string, just like one index of that string, right? And the y would be the actual, what do you call it? The amount. It would be the index in the list, right? The actual list of strings. And where was I even going with that? There'd be a function going from list of strings to single string to write to our insert mode, right? So we would, if we have, how does it begin? It's just like one vertical line, right? Okay. And then, so since we have those indices, since we have indices of the cursor, we know that if we enter insert mode, we know where to start adding characters, right? And if number of characters is greater than max, create a new string below the current one and add typed characters to that string, right? So that's that. What else does insert mode? And yeah, I think that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me, at least, before coding it. Visual mode. So since again we have the indices, visual mode becomes pretty easy because like it's just wherever we start it, right? We would have the start no matter what, and then the end would just move as our cursor moves, right? We have indices already to determine this is highlighted. We just have to display the highlight underneath the text. Excuse me. Right? And in visual line mode, it's even easier than that, right? We select the whole line, you highlight the whole line, we just go up or down, right? So that's pretty easy. Same thing with lines. Okay, normal mode commands. So these commands are like, let's just do the easy ones for now. WEB. I'll just do W, E, and B for now because like I already use GB. So command count action. I just press B, nothing happens, right? Yeah. That's gonna be kind of cool to make the command count action stuff. We gotta think about that too, right? So for W, for E, and B, what's gonna happen is every time you move around, right? Like every time you move around, it would calculate these things, right? Like it would calculate where the next W would be, where the next E would be, where the next B would be as you move around, because it's just like looking for the next, like W, right? What does W do? It goes to the first letter of the next word. So it looks for a space, right? It just keeps incrementing some pointer until it finds, how about, that's interesting, for punctuation. So it's not, calculating the next W is not as straightforward as just looking for the next space, as I assumed. So there's comma. So either looks for the next punctuation point, or there's no next punctuation point. It looks for the next what should we call it? The next character after a space. Okay, so we would just calculate that, and same thing for E, right? It would go until we find the next space, and then however the fuck it works for punctuation, right? So it still goes to the next punctuation, right? and B goes to the last, to the first letter of the last word. And if, like for any of these, right? If it goes to the end or the start of a line, if B, it could potentially go to the start of the line. With W and E, it could potentially go to the end of the line. It would just start looking from the first character of the next line, right? And it would like implicitly take this as a space. So whatever check there is, like, oh, is there a space here? Like it wouldn't just go from like D, like even though there's no space, and okay, there's a space. Okay, now there's not a space, right? Even though there's not a space between this and this, it would still count it to be a space, it would go here, right? So at every movement, we would calculate the next ones for these. And for F, right, we would do that one on the fly because it's like kind of hard keeping track of every character that could be next, right? Like these is just, okay, look for the next space or the next or previous space or the next or previous punctuation. I think taking into account every next character, like that's like, okay, do 3 calculations versus a lot more. A lot more, right? So because of that, I think F is something that we can just do on the fly. Like, okay, FL, right? It would keep going until it finds an L, and then it would get the L, and it would also get how far it was from this, so we know where to render the cursor, right? And then, what's it called? For semicolon, like I just started. Dude, this Obsidian not even have it. What does it even do? I'm tripping. Semicolon. And then the semicolon serves depending on context, repeating FT commands, and line separator by typing semicolons. Oh, it's just for F and T. Okay, well, same thing. We just store if it's F. Okay, wait. If we do FJ, if we go here, okay, FA, A. There's no more. Okay. So for F, it doesn't go to the next line, it seems. So semicolon just saves. We just store whatever last thing we did and just repeat that, right? It's not too hard to save. And I think this is normal visual insert mode. That's it, right? So, okay, the thing I couldn't figure out, right, is, whatchamacallit, the freaking, go next note. Right, so we would, oh no, okay, so the thing I thought of was, like, okay, so say everything starts as an empty file, right? So what that means is that as we type, we can create a new note with, like, the way I wanted to do it was, okay, I type, right, and then I would highlight it and then press a command to create a note out of it, or press a command, just say command N, right, and then I would type into it, and then that would be the title of the next note, and then I would press command N again, and then I would end the creation of the next note, right, and then if I press command enter, it would navigate to that note. But I think it's honestly possible, right? Like, I don't think it'd be too hard to do this. So what I would do is, if I created a new note, I would store the coordinates of that note, meaning like which the x and the y of the start, and if I create a store x, y cores of start and finish of that note. Now, since I have the start and the finish of that note, I know I got the whole little text snippet, right? And the structure of note would just be like note subnote dot text, right? Dot text files. Dot text file. Dot text is plain text, meaning it can only text characters with no formatting, like bold, italics, or fonts. It's a common format for storing human readable text data. Right? Okay. Okay, so yeah. Right, this would be the original note, and this would be the sub note, and there would be like I know there's like a max, like number of characters a path can be, right? So I gotta low-key figure that out, and also, this would create the restriction of no underscores in the title, because that would kind of fuck the system up pretty bad, right? I guess. Yeah, it would kind of. Oh, look, my bicep up heck. It would kind of fuck up the system a little bit. I guess like I could do like a more complicated thing. Like I could do like a hashtag, right? Can hashtags be in file names? Can I just test it? Let's punch bro apply. Oh, it can't. And bro apply. Okay. So yeah, let's make a hashtag instead, because I think I'm not going to use a hashtag in the title, right? But I was thinking we could do something like complicated, like that, right? So if we see any like these three characters, let's just do hashtags now, right? Like the number of hashtags in a file path determines how deep that note is, right? So this is 1 note deep, and this would be 2 notes deep, right? Like subnote is a note in note, and subnote T is a note in subnote, right? So where was I? Okay, so as I create a new note, I would have these coordinates, right? These XY coordinates. So since I have those, I could store those somewhere, right? Say in a list, or yeah, honestly, a list is probably fine, right? Store those coordinates in a list, and then since I have that list, I could, when I do my operation to build the actual file from the list of strings, I could add these little hashtags to the text, right? So this would make building the list of strings and building the file from the list of strings a bit more complicated, but I think this could be a valid solution, right? Because you would render the things based on what. No, I'm actually just talking out of my ass right now. What was I even trying to say? Well, basically, like, you would know where the links were because you'd be building the text dynamically, right? So what would happen if someone in insert mode started changing the title of the note, right? So here, it would just create a new note. What would I want it to do? Since I already know that it's a note, I would want it to kind of update it, right? But how would I know when to update it and when to not update it? We would know if that index is within a link, right? But that would mean anytime I edit any character, I would check if that character is in any possible link in the file, right? And that seems like a lot to do. And I don't think that would be a good approach, because that's like so much checking so many other potential things, right? Dude, I have a fucking bug bite, yo. Just like picking at this shit. And, like, bug bite turned into a little pimple now, bro. It's actually so annoying. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, okay. So, like, that is a wrench in the plan, right? Because that would mean I can't. Okay, so you go read file. After you read the file, you build a list of strings. And in the list of strings, you would render certain text a different color to demonstrate that that is a note. But how would you know where you could GD on, or not GD, but Command Enter on to go to the next note? Because, like, without checking it every single time, right? I think you would. Like, you would check it if you press Command Enter, right? If you press Command Enter saying, okay, take me to the next note, so it would take whatever like coordinate you're on, right? And then it would go into the data structure storing the freaking what do you call it? The freaking coordinates of all the different subnotes, right? And then if it's in it, then we get some other information. It's like a true or a false, right? And then we can just it's if the coordinate we enter is in the range that we are asking for, we would take that whole range and get the entire note title and build the path, because we know how to build the path, and then we would save all edits to that other file, and then re-up it to the freaking we would just save our changes to the file, right, and go to that new note, or create that new note, then go to it, or whatever. I think that makes sense. But this is definitely like the most shakiest part about about the project, right? But like when I first started thinking about it, I was like, okay, this is like impossible, but this is not impossible. This is pretty possible. Okay, so what I want to do is figure out multiple lines. JK, figure out, okay, holding. I gotta think about holding more too, huh? Honestly, like, I'm gonna just try to think about these different things, right? Because, yeah, like each individual thing, like, I can definitely code, but like would it all work together? Because if it wouldn't all work together, then I would just be wasting time coding each individual part, right? Because now I have not a great, but I have a understanding of how Pygame works and how to think in terms of this GUI app. Because I know, okay, we do something, and we store some data potentially, and then that would cause a change, and then we would render that change, and then it's just like a big loop until we quit out of it, right? So what's next? Holding. That's what I need to find next. Holding. So content list. When we call Command Enter, we would take the index where we are at, and is within any note places, and if it is, we would go into that note. Easy peasy. And then that would be going in, and then going out would just be the reverse, because we would be storing, like, we would have the title of the current note that we're on, and we would also have the entire string, right? So we would, and it would also be the from blah hashtag blah dot text, right? We would start here, and we would go back, and then we would hit this, right? And then we could just check, okay, is this the title? And it's probably always going to be the title, unless someone like went into the file and like Vim or some other editor and like fucked with it, and they're like, okay, it's gonna be different. But we would go to the end, and then we would just like pop this part, right? We would just pop this part off the file, and then it would just be the original blah.txt, right? So that's how to go the other way. Let me write that down. How to go up to the note tree, start at end and start at the end and go to next hashtag. Right? Yeah. Okay. So what? What was it called? Right. So I have a couple ideas for this, right? And I have one idea, and the idea is just giving up, because I'm saying holding makes me a worse Vim user. So instead of that, I can only do one thing at a time, or I can chain different commands to do the thing I want, right? And that, although that makes sense, like that is like big cope, I can't figure it out. But what if big cope I can't figure it out is actually a hidden genius feature to make me better at Vim motions? Could be not. But I wanna. Okay, it's 11:41. I'll take 9 minutes trying to think of a solution, and if I can't think of one, I will give up. And okay, while what was I watching? I was not watching that. I actually like never clicked on that video. Like, I don't think I ever clicked on that video. Like, it was my YouTube recommended, but I never watched that. That's like kind of crazy. Did I hit Steam already? Yeah, I did, huh? Steam. Like, I told myself I like deleted Steam yesterday because I was like playing like too much Binding of Isaac. Okay, it's on my other monitor. But okay, I'll only play this game on YouTube to make YouTube videos about it from now on. Okay. So, okay, I was gonna, it's 11:43. I wasted a couple minutes doing that. But yeah, I do want to play Isaac because I do enjoy that game a lot. At 12, I'll make a video about it and I'll post that too. But what was I trying to say? Oh, I'm trying to figure out scrolling, and if I can't figure out not scrolling, left holding down different buttons, right? I can't figure holding down different buttons in 7 minutes. I am going to give up, and I will go. Am I going to give up? I don't like the idea of giving up. No, I don't want to give up that easily. It's actually like a pride thing. I don't want to give up, right? But okay, how can I do this? Because the problem is, every time I did it yesterday, it would auto. Oh yeah, like why would I give up? I mean, like ask ChatGPT it, right? That's like last resort, is asking ChatGPT. That's like I'm not just gonna ask it in 6 minutes, right? Like I'm gonna have to be like stuck for like an hour of thinking before I ask ChatGPT how to do this, right? So the problem was, however I did it the day before that, whenever I was trying to do it, I was holding down the thing, and if I made it 12, which is the width of one character, every time I clicked it once, it would jump twice, right? It would register 2 clicks of the button, even though I only clicked it once. And that, so with 12, what would happen is it would skip too far ahead, right? And then I was like, okay, if it skips twice, let me just do it. Half of that 6. So when I would press it once, it would jump over perfectly, right? But as I would hold it, it would go like, it was like going through characters. Like it wasn't the cursor. You see how it's always on one character? It was going like halfway through and stuff like that, right? So, and it would only, okay, one thing to know is that H and L are only in one line, right? And we know the length of the line, or we will starting now with the new system, right? So, so what? It's definitely useful information, knowing however many characters are in one line, right? Because that, there's a finite number of places that there is a, okay, wait, also, changing that rule again, I will not play, if I play Isaac, it's either with, I'm in Discord with my friends, or I record a video. Those are my two rules. I will not play alone and not record a video ever, because that is like, I actually wasted so much time the other day just playing Isaac, and I got like I just kept getting good runs, and I just had to like finish the good runs, you know. But that's not really good for anything. Okay, but knowing the length of a line, how many characters are in a line, is definitely useful to what do you call it? It's useful to like it. There's only so many places that cursor could be at any point in time, right? So what if it's like what if we had some sort of grid too, right? Where but the problem is like that's what I would assume like would happen yesterday, but it just like didn't, right? It just like didn't do that yesterday. Fuck. So on key down, you would keep moving the cursor. On key up, you would stop moving the cursor. Fucking hell, bro. Yeah, I don't know about holding, bro. Can't figure that out right now. So, like, okay, like if we know how many letters, how many characters are in a line, right? We know there's a finite number of places that character could be, right? So if we move that character, right, you would always round it up 12, or the width of a character, right? Like if we were here and we pressed W, not what the fuck am I thinking? If we press L, right, and L was 6. Every time you press L, it's 6 to the left, right? When you hold it, you would round up, and then when you round up, theoretically, you should go immediately to the next place rather than going in inner like places in the middle, right? Because like it was just like going like here, right? It's clearly going letter to letter, but before, as like when you saw the cursor move, it would like you clearly tell it's like in between. It's going in between stuff all the way, right? We don't want that. So what if we hold it, you round up 12 / length of the character? Because if we do that, right, we would immediately jump to the next spot. Theoretically, like I think you would just immediately jump to the next spot instead of because you cut out the possibility of the cursor being rendered at any point that is not a multiple, okay, not multiple, but any point that's not 12 forward, right? It would force each movement to be 12 forward. And if you did it with 6, right, that would also make going, like pressing H and L once possible, right? Because if we made it 12 and then we did that, like, it would be, oh wait, it's so currently I have on key down, right? Counter equals 0. Equals 1. Counter should be 1, 2. What? Why is it always 1? Oh, it's done. Instead it's a 0 here. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So when you hold it, it double counts it for whatever reason. So because it'd be okay, 6, 12. When you hold it and you tap it, it goes immediately next. But when you tap it, it goes immediately next because it does it twice, and 6 times 2 is 12, so it goes next. But when you hold it, it doesn't always do that. Sometimes it's in the middle of 2 characters, right? 8 or not 18. 6 plus 3 is 9. 9 is in the middle of 6 and 12, right? Or whatever the fucking thing is, right? Okay, 12, whatever, fuck the math. Like when you do it with 6, sometimes it could be in the middle. So by always rounding up, you prevent that from happening, right? So so we do key down, key up. That would be 4. If it is not 12 times something, you round up. So it is always 12 times something. So it will always be rendered by a valid square. This seems like it has promise. Okay. What's the next thing? Oh, control movements. So we would have a, like, okay, we know the dimension of the window, right? We know the dimension of the window. We would calculate how many lines could be shown at once, and if there's more than that, that's fine. We simply just render the lines that should be shown. This is just more information to store and maintain as we potentially go up and down, right? Because yeah, there's like a finite amount of lines that can be present on the screen, and by going up or down, that changes things, right? So control. How far can control E go? Control E can go until it's halfway down, right? Control E can go until half of the text is displayed. How many top now? What? Like top half displays text. Control Y. Nothing goes up to the end, right? Like I don't think it moves it down. That'd be stupid. Yeah, okay. Control Y goes until very top is top of file. The file is top of view. Control D goes down half page. If possible. Control what's it? U goes up half page if possible. Right? Just up and down and whatnot. And it just we'd have indices to store what is like available to view, right? We'd have max and min. And as soon as it crosses that max or min, then we would fuck around with the indices to go up or down, right? I think that works. I think this is like all of them that I need for the editor. It's like low key solved. Right? That's pretty good. So okay, I gotta implement all this shit, right? And then I gotta implement like functions to call when the app starts to see what files exist and stuff like that for the per project and what projects are even there, right? And after that, that's like it. And then obviously like okay, like I should have the rectangles were like low-key bullshit. Like I just made it go up and down. But I need like I need to render text in the rectangles and I need them to be like just the border and whatnot. I think I'm happy with today's progress. So tomorrow's goal is to finish the editor, do however much I can on the editor. So yeah, alright, bye bye.